It's not every day that a company known for making high-end pen displays makes the news by essentially releasing their own version of a budget item. But here we are. This is the Wacom Cintiq 16, and we're going to go over it in a minute. Before we begin, let's pay some bills. The resolution comes in at Full HD 1080p. The screen size is 15.6 inch measured diagonally. 16.7 million colors. The aspect ratio is 16:9 with a contrast ratio of 1000:1. Now let's compare this to the Cintiq 16 Pro to see what's missing and what's been added. Again, resolution is 1080p. It's 72% NTSC. A matte display. It's not bonded. We'll talk about that in a second. There's no etched glass. There's a slight parallax increase again from that no bonding, and there's obviously no touch on the Cintiq 16. The Cintiq Pro 16, however, is full 4K Ultra HD. It's 94% Adobe RGB. It is a matte finish as well. It's laminated, meaning bonded. The glass is end to end, which is listed lower. It's etched glass, meaning not only is it a matte finish, but there's some tooth to it. Finally, the Pro does feature gesture and full touch support. I just want to point out another difference between the non-Pro and the Pro, which is listed on that chart, which is the PPI. That stands for pixels per inch. And in addition to the resolution, this is what also makes the screen look somewhat clearer, and when you zoom in, you don't see so much pixelation. This is why your cell phone is so clear, because of the pixels per inch. So that's just another thing to note. Some people tend to concentrate on the resolutions when in fact, you know, they're also noticing the lesser PPI. Now, the increased parallax on the non-Pro model isn't, you know, necessarily due to technology. It's due to that bonding glass. So what happens is when they bond the glass, it's closer to the digitizer. So in fact, your eye, there's literally less of a physical gap between the pen, the glass, and the digitizer. When I say there's slightly more parallax, it isn't daunting, as I'm showing on the screen here. It's not a major thing. It's just something to mention, so essentially people don't pick it apart. From left to right, we have the HDMI and USB cable, the power brick, and the cord that actually plugs into the wall, a little instruction booklet, and the Pro Pen 2. The 3-in-1 cable is great. On the connector that actually connects to your Cintiq, it actually has locking mechanisms, so it's not going to yank out of there. I'll show that in a second. On the other end, it's USB-A, which is pretty much still standard, HDMI, which is a lot more consumer friendly, for laptop hookups and especially for video cards. They all feature an HDMI port, and this is going to be for power here. The power is like an old school mouse and keyboard PS2 port, so they just plug in like that, and that's really it. You're done. Now, I've seen some reviews already complaining about the lack of a USB-C port, and it seems like us fickle artists just can't make up our mind, because we all complained about it when they came out with the Pro Edition. I like the inclusion of HDMI. I like the fact that you don't need a separate converter box, with a bunch of cables coming out of it. And I mentioned that in my review of the Pro 16 that I thought that might affect the portability a little bit. To me, this is much better. It's a lot easier to get extension cables for USB-A and HDMI, and if you want to just go, sit on the couch or something like that, to me this is more of a scalable solution, put it that way. Let's talk about the Pro Pen 2 for a second. We've covered this ad nauseum, but this is 8,192 levels of pressure, a tilt range of 60 degrees, a tilt recognition of 60 levels. It uses Wacom's battery-free EMR technology. It has an eraser on the end and 2 programmable buttons on the pen itself. Now, we've talked about the Pro Pen 2 ad nauseum on this channel, and for good reason. It's the top pen in the industry, bar none. It's the most mature pen. It feels great. It has a rubber grip at the end of it. The contouring is fantastic. It has 2 programmable buttons, an eraser on the top. It's the king of the mountain right now, unless somebody else knocks it off. The fact that they included this pen and not maybe a lesser pen, I don't want to say inferior, but maybe one of the lower model pens, speaks to how much they want this device to succeed, and the fact that it is a pro device. Just a quick demonstration of the tilt in Expressi. Taking a look at the tablet, we can see right off the bat, Wacom's, well-known craftsmanship. The tablet's beautiful. It may not be end-to-end glass, but the bezel's there. It's a nice device. It's heavy. It's made of quality materials. It doesn't feel cheap. This doesn't feel like a budget device. Now, flipping the device over, we're going to cover just a couple of things. The Cintiq 16 maintains the kickstand legs we've come to know from the Pro line. One notable difference from the Pro line is the addition of the pre-drilled VESA mount screws, which are the 75 by 75 size, which I actually think is an improvement over the Pro line. Another new feature which I can really appreciate is the addition of a pen holder, but what's neat is when you pull it out, all your spare nibs and everything are in this little doohickey here. You can move it from left to right. There's a slot on the other side, although I didn't show it. And your pen nib remover is also part of this device. This is great because you don't have to worry about carrying an extra thing with you or losing it or anything like that. I really appreciated this change here, as opposed to the weighty hockey puck that was included before. Once again, a cost-effective move, but it actually works out better for me. The nibs here, you're just going to slide them up, so you got to just, be careful of that. You see that hole there? That's your nib remover. You're going to stick it in and then tilt it up and then pull your nib right now. I'm not going to do it right now because I got to let better things to do than watch this nib launch across the room, but that's basically how you do it. Connectivity is a cinch here because of the 3-in-1 cable that's included. You're going to pop open this little, plastic slot, and the cable just goes in there one way. They've also included a little notch here for cable management, so it mitigates all the problems of cables being pulled out and everything like that may have been in older devices or competing devices even. You're going to snap the plastic back in, and that cable's not going to move. Now, Wacom does offer an actual stand from the get-go with this model, which was not the case with the Pro 16. The stand looks very similar to what we've seen in competing devices, but it's a much higher quality. It's a stronger and thicker plastic. The mechanism in which you actually adjust it is much stronger. Hookup is easy. They include, with the stand, not the device, sort of a connector plate. It's not an adapter plate, it's a connector plate. So it doesn't, while it has the VESA mount screws and those measurements, the actual screws that hook into the stand are not VESA. There's something specific to the stand and specific to Wacom, so that's, I guess, important to note. And once you have that adapter hooked on, it's easy. You put the stand right on the back of it. It's 4 more screws, and then at that point, it's complete. Adjusting is simple. You pull up on the little adjuster, and then you have multiple levels of angles that you can put the Cintiq. Now, another option here, which really works nice with this Cintiq 16 and is not specific to anything Wacom sells, are these sort of laptop stands you can get off of Amazon and eBay and such. What I've done here is I take a little film that I got at a dollar store. It just adds some traction so my Cintiq doesn't fly off it. You can get this stuff in any Home Depot or Walmart or something like that. It just basically is stuff that would go into like a kitchen drawer or something like that, but it's completely rubber. So keyboards, anything like that, accessories, it's a nice option if you are not a person who wants to sit at a desk all day, or you want to put your feet up on a couch or something like that, get some work done. Okay, as usual, we're going to start with Sketchbook Pro. And I'm not going to be using any of the Express Key remote accessories or anything like that. I may use a keyboard, but I want to review the thing as is out of the box with what's included. So let's get some first impressions of the pencil. Pencil feels good. Feels like a Cintiq. I don't immediately feel any kind of difference between the etch screen really and the matte screen that comes on this one. Pressure curve feels perfect, like absolutely perfect. Let's just get rid of that. We're gonna do some quick strokes. Again, what we're looking for is we're looking for any shoelace effect. We don't see any here. These lines look perfect. I tried to be slick here, guys, because I often do these reviews kind of off to the left so you can see the screen. And what that means is basically when I'm doing the review, I can't draw to save my life. So I did a pre-drawing underneath just to show that, you know, when doing a live drawing, how the tablet performs. But I'm still way off center. Again, just trying to give the people watching the video an idea of how these pressure curves work. And this feels great. I do notice, obviously, coming from a 4K screen, a little bit more pixelation when I zoom in, and that's due to the decrease in PPI, you know, because of the resolution. But I mean, this resolution is fine for me to work with, especially on a 16-inch screen. Yeah, I'm not really sure what it is, but you know, I have the Cintiq 24 Pro next to me, and in comparison, you know, when you have them right next to each other, is there a difference in the actual tactile feel? I mean, you know, slight, but this feels real good, really good. I'm kind of done here butchering my own drawing. We'll move on to Clip Studio Paint. Right, we're in Clip Studio Paint. We're gonna go right to the line test. As usual, we have a pretty much a dead pixel brush. No stabilization, no well, really no nothing on it. Took all that off. Yeah, those are pretty straight. I'm not seeing much of any. I mean, there may be a very, very slight amount of wobble. I mean, slight. If you're really being anal about it. But these lines are really good. Amongst the best I've seen, especially in the smaller displays. These are almost on par with my 24 Pro. So these are great lines. We'll test it again in Photoshop. We'll get a little pressure test going here. As you can see too, I'm making use of the eraser. I'm trying to practice more with it to get more use out of it. Alright, I don't know who this anatomically incorrect guy is supposed to be, but drawn off center, we're going to have to kind of roll with it. Oh yeah, this feels really good. I really can't tell any difference between this version and the 16-inch Pro. Like, I really can't. As far as line quality and just the feeling of drawing with the stylus in your hand, it feels identical to me. One of the reasons I'm doing this too is these sharp lines is because it really shows sort of the tilt function and the general pressure curve out of the box of what you can get with this tablet. Now, if you look, the screen probably picks it up better, but that sort of EMR lag behind seems to be much better on this tablet. I mean, it really, really, I'm not even drawing here. I'm just trying to show you how fast it is. And the pen tip is keeping right up with what I'm doing on the screen. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it, guys. I really like this tablet a lot. We'll fire up in Photoshop and do another line test. Make sure it handles everything well there. Alright, so as we can see, I'm about to take smoothing off. This will just be a hard round brush. What do you guys think? This is pretty straight. I don't see any wobble at all in these lines. It's perfect. One thing you haven't heard me talk about is fan noise. That's because there isn't any. There is zero fan noise. There are no fans in this device at all. The surface doesn't get hot. You know, I've spent quite a bit of time with it, and I don't find that it gets really warm at all. You know, maybe just a touch, but nothing you aren't used to. So just while we have it up, I'm not going to cover it in great detail because I've done this in other videos, and I'm actually going to do another video just on panels and such. But the one thing this tablet doesn't have, it doesn't have any extra buttons, express keys and such, and that doesn't really bother me. However, I wish there was just one short key button, because I have to program the radio key and the express keys, which again, this is what I've covered in the 16 Pro and the express key video I did, and I don't want to cover it in detail again when I'm going to make another video. But what I do is I usually have this radio key call out to other subpanels, and it would have been nice if I could have kept, you know, two keys on here without having to call up the radio. Now, it's not really that big deal because you have all your settings: save, undo. You can call out to other panels, so you can pin these, meaning, you know, once you're bringing up once, and so forth and so on. But one recommendation that I'm going to make is that, you know, they should have a way to at least launch this the first time without having to use a button. And maybe there's a way to do that. I can't figure out how to do it. But, you know, like shortcut key on the shortcut on the desktop or something like that, you bring it up once and then you can fire up all your other panels. That'd be really nice to maintain the flexibility of using this second button. But it's not a deal breaker or anything like that. That's more like feedback than it is a, you know, complaint or a knock against the tablet. One thing I'd like to see, you know, piggybacking on that is, you know, maybe not a physical key, but maybe something in the driver where, you know, we can have a keyboard option, you know, to map, you know, things like panels and the radio dial. I think that would go a long way into making some of the buttons on the pen, for example, you know, more readily available. And a lot of people use keyboards, right? So, you know, being able to map a keyboard shortcut, or just during the install having the option, you know, like I said, to have a shortcut for the radio menu on the desktop, I think solves a lot of problems, and it brings to light one of the least advertised but I think best features of the Wacom software, and that's all these different customizable panels. I don't see a lot of people cover it, and somebody asked me in the comments section to do a video about it. I'll do that because I think it goes unnoticed, and it speaks to, you know, the quality and the maturity of the software. So yeah, final thoughts for me. Look, it's a win for me. The best advice I could give people who are trying to decide if it's worth spending, you know, the extra on a Wacom Cintiq versus, you know, some of the other devices this size in the landscape, it's very subjective, right? So what you're basically doing is you're saying it's not just a matter of craftsmanship and quality and stuff. It's a matter of maturity. So, you know, this is why Apple gets to charge people all this money, because their software updates are always there, they're consistent, their phones are supported for years. You never really think in your head that, you know, 2 years from now my phone's not going to be supported. That's the analogy I would make. I'm not knocking any of the other brands, you know, and it's an odd thing, you know, when a new Cintiq comes out and there are other things in the market with the same specs. Now, I know there's smaller devices, you know, some I've reviewed actually, you know, with, you know, maybe better features or different, but there's nothing right now at the time of this review this size that has different specs. And I'm pretty sure this is the only model that actually features tilt. So, you know, that's a big deal. Maturity, craftsmanship, Wacom support, longevity, things of that nature. That's why you're going to pony up the money, you know, $100 or what, $150 more or something, whatever the next device down is. To me, that's the difference maker. Finally, I had a lot of fun with this device. I mean, I've had the 16-inch Pro. I have the 24-inch Pro right now. You know, I didn't really, you know, have it feel a big difference between drawing on this. It feels like a Cintiq. You know, I mentioned before, it doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. And, you know, going back to the point about the overall longevity, there's also a value associated with it, right? So I had the 16-inch Pro, and I wanted to upgrade to 24-inch Pro, so I actually sold the 16-inch Pro, you know, to put that money towards 24-inch Pro. So I don't think we have a long enough span of time for the other brand makers to know that that value really holds up. But these are all arguments you could make, you know, for the Cintiq. Now, if you're on a budget and you need something, and it's like, well, it's between this one that costs a couple $100 less, and it's between this one. I mean, you do the smart thing, right? I mean, if you need something to work on, then you buy something that fits your budget. But if you could hang out in a little longer, at the very least, you're not going to be disappointed with the quality of this device. This is on, they just added support in the regular Cintiq drivers for this device. So that's the other thing. The same drivers I'm using for the 24-inch Pro are the ones I'm using for this 16-inch. So they're very matured. I didn't have any problems, no quirky reboots, no quirky setting issues or something like that. Again, that goes back to the maturity. So hopefully you guys like this. I would have had it out earlier, but I had a hard drive crash and I had to, you know, reshoot the entire thing from scratch. But if you like this video, I got more coming. You know, like, subscribe, hit the little bell, and I'll check you guys out in the next one. Thanks. Another day, keep waking up from the